Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Communities Live here on Sheffield Live 93.2 FM. We have a very special guest here today. We have singer Susan Wendelken. So, good afternoon.
Hello, how are you, Chris?
Oh, shall I say good morning over here, actually?
Yes, it's very, very early in the morning.
So, how are you? How are you been?
I have no idea. I don't know how I am until about 9 a.m.
Fair enough. So, for our listeners at home, give us a bit of background. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I grew up in New York. I'm in a suburb of New York, Long Island, and I started singing pretty much as soon as I could speak, and my family definitely encouraged my inclination towards singing. And I grew up in a house where there was definitely a lot of music, although there were some vast differences in what people were listening to. My parents liked a lot of Broadway show tunes, and my mother liked some of a lot of the folk artists who had a lot of harmonies, like the Mamas and the Papas and Peter, Paul and Mary. And my dad liked the Beach Boys. And a little later in life he introduced me to some jazz artists that he loved as well. So it was a pretty broad range of influences going on in the house. And my sister and my brother, who were both considerably older than me, 7 and 8.5 years respectively older than me in years. And so I got a lot of, the rock and roll and some of the more modern songwriters of the time. Modern of the time. I started to say Billy Joel, but Billy Joel, was very modern in the 70s.
Mm.
Not that he's not,
Yeah, yeah.
not that he's not still very popular now, but you know what I mean. The music he was putting out was still new. So a little bit of that. And my brother listened to some of the, sort of the progressive rock and roll, like Rush and Yes and stuff like that. And he loved Pink Floyd. So there were a lot of influences coming at me at once. And then I, of course, had to rebel against all of them and listen to heavy metal instead when I was a teenager.
You mentioned a couple of musical influences that your family and yourself. I mean, who are your main influences? Who influenced you mainly to get into music?
So, some of the big influences for me to get into music, when I was 15, there was a German band called Warlock, and the singer is this unbelievable powerhouse singer named Doro Pesch. And she was the one who really made me see that a woman could sing in that genre and be successful in that genre, and really be respected. And she has an amazing voice, and she still is out there performing all the time today. She's really unbelievable, her voice. And so she was probably one of the first in, as far as showing me my path. And a little bit later, I was playing heavy metal for years, but I was still listening to a lot of other things. And I started performing with some friends in this wonderful Irish music scene around Queens, which is I'm sure most people know Queens is a borough of New York City.
Yeah.
And so there's a very big Irish community over there, people who come over from Ireland and live there at least for a while. Sometimes they go home, sometimes they stay. And I made some wonderful friends and performed alongside them. And so then the influences really started to open up into, artists like Sinead O'Connor and Christy Moore and Luca Bloom, and some just great artists. And so that's really informed a lot of what I do now. I really love, there's some wonderful voices out there like Natalie Maines from the Chicks. And I'm still sort of reeling from Tina Turner having passed away, because she's also a very early influence of mine, and has been throughout. I mean, her voice, there's nothing like her voice in the whole world. She was simply the best.
Definitely. I mean, it was such a shocker, wasn't it? I mean, I couldn't
Yeah.
believe it. Especially, I mean, a legend like her. I mean, you definitely hit it right there. She simply was the best.
Mm.
And I mean, we spoke about musical influences. If there was anybody that you could duet with, new or old, who would it be and why?
Oh boy. I'll tell you, if I could duet with anybody, it would be Jack Black because it would be a lot of fun and he's got a great voice and sometimes I find myself singing along with the Tenacious D albums and I don't know, I think we sound pretty good together.
Well, hopefully we'll get him to listen, so maybe a future duet might be on the cards. Fingers crossed. So you have you recently have an album called I hope I can pronounce it right. Is it called Elaine's Echo?
That's
Or
correct.
so tell us about how the album came together. And you
Yeah.
also have a single called "You Don't Have to Love It to Leave It." So I mean, well, to start off with, how did the album come together?
So I had decided that I wanted to do something on my own because I've been part of bands over the years. I've always been a member of the band, and then we would release music together, put out albums collaboratively, and I do really enjoy collaboration. But there was this drive in me to prove to myself that I could do something on my own, and so I decided that years ago and really kind of found myself in a terrible, crippling writer's block. I couldn't finish anything. I would start a song and then I would hate what I'd come up with and then I would try and see if I could take, the sketchings of two different songs and put them together and it just wasn't working and I was very frustrated. But a friend of mine had just done a workshop around this wonderful book called The Artist's Way, and that's by an author named Julia Cameron. And so once I once I heard about it, and my friend said, you should do this workshop. It really changed her life. And I said, well, I'm looking for that. And so I did the workshop, and it was a 12-week workshop, and we followed the book, which has 12 chapters to it. So every week we would meet this little group and share our experiences and sort of hold each other accountable a little bit for making sure that we do the work that's involved in the book. And so um by the end of it I had written a song, and that's track 2, which is called Rewrite. I had written that song, and so that really opened up the floodgates for me to continue writing. And so then I was all set to start recording, and then COVID hit. And believe it or not, COVID really didn't interfere too much with the recording. Certainly, it had some impact, but the recording studio is the best place in the world to social distance because
Sure.
everybody's got their own booth. You're all kind of separated from each other by glass, even if you can see each other. So uh, we were able to go in and do the recording, and it took a bit of time to get everything sorted out, but we recorded, and by the end of it I had everything that I needed. And so then it took a little bit of time on the back end to get things going because I'm really not very savvy with all these different platforms that we need to be on to push the music out. So that took a while for me to get my ducks in a row there. And so it really wasn't until towards the end of 2022 that I had put everything together. And so then we released the album in April of 2023, and it's gotten a great reception so far. I just got a report from Spotify that I have over 25,800 listeners, and
Oh wow.
don't even I don't even understand what that means. I don't know if people are actually listening to the whole song or if it's 25,000 clicks. I don't know
Yeah.
what that means, but it's really exciting. And so it's been some journey. I'm telling you, Chris, it's really amazing.
I mean, you talked about your experience as a singer songwriter. I mean, you say you have writer's block. I mean, have you? Do but when you did that workshop, have you slowly overcome your writer's block, or is there still elements of that now when you do future songwriting?
Yeah, well, I definitely have trouble focusing on things, I get very easily distracted, and then I'm like, "Ooh, something shiny." And then I lose focus, but, I do actually, when I'm ready to write the next album, I'll probably go through the book again and just sort of reinforce, what I learned from it so that I can get a good kind of, starting position to begin writing again, which I definitely want to do another album after this.
I mean, we talked a little bit about COVID, and I mean, it was bad times for everybody in 2020. But for the music industry, I mean, how has it changed quite when we slowly came out of COVID, and eventually, and now that we are officially out of, well, not out of court restrictions and everything, has it changed the music industry for the better, or is it is there still like some restrictions that you still got to abide by, if you get what I mean?
Well, I would say it pushed a lot of people to perform outside. I would say that, uh, after COVID hit, I mean, a lot of musicians were really, there was a terrible impact for a lot of people who were self-employed, including musicians. And I know that there's people listening that are probably like, yeah, well, my restaurant got shut down, or, I know there's a lot of different people who are impacted.
Yeah,
Um, I
true.
can tell you, what it did to a lot of musicians I know, which is that, they only had, gigs. That was their entire living, was performing gigs.
Sure.
And so they suddenly didn't have a way to do what they did. So it did push a lot of people to get creative and do some things on Zoom, and do some things on various platforms. People would, go live on Facebook and perform that way. And I think that those are the things that COVID did. And obviously COVID caused a lot of misery. And unfortunately, misery is usually what drives people to write great music. So I know that there's probably a lot of the songs that are coming out now have to do with heartbreak that people suffered during the pandemic.
I mean, you mentioned like Zoom and other social media platforms that artists were using. A lot of people did like live gigs on YouTube and stuff like that. I mean, was that an angle that you were interested in taking?
The truth is, Chris, is that I'm allergic to cameras. I really, you know, it's an unfortunate thing that cameras are so important nowadays, um, in the industry. But um, I really didn't utilize a lot of that. Now I have another job, a Monday to Friday job, so I was all right financially. So I didn't have the same necessity as some of my other friends who needed to kind of figure those things out. But what I was doing for a while during the lockdowns is that I said, listen, I love my friends more than I hate the cameras. So I would go onto Facebook Live and I would do some performances. And I'll say this right now, that I am definitely not a proficient instrumentalist. I can play a little bit of the keys, I can play a little bit of guitar. And so I would perform, here and there, and I would do them kind of trying to raise money for some of the other musicians. So I would do a video, and then I would say, if you like what you hear, don't send anything to me. Send it to this other person's PayPal account or their Venmo account, or the different accounts that people have. So that was something that I did, in the streams.
So, I mean, and where do you see yourself going in the near future? I mean, is there any upcoming projects that you can tell us about, or is it all hush hush at the moment?
It's really more of the unknown. The album has been out about 8 weeks now, and it's wonderful to see some of the response that it's getting. I just got my first article review, and it was a positive review, so I'm so relieved that it was a good one. And I'm just looking to see, where the album really does well, so that I can, hopefully do a little bit of touring and go and perform in some of the places where people are really, enjoying it and would like to hear me play live, because um, I think I'm actually better live. I think that sometimes people stiffen up a little bit in the recording studio. So I think my voice live is actually a lot better than it is in the recording.
You see, you mentioned you rather like to play art live. So, I mean, tell us what if there was any venue that you'd love to play live at, where would it be?
Oh, I'm ready for Madison Square Garden. I'm ready for the O2 Arena.
Would you come to Sheffield?
Yeah. Listen, Sheffield's the birthplace of Def Leppard. I'll be there tomorrow. So, I would believe me, I would love to come play in Sheffield and all over the UK, all over UK, Scotland, Ireland, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, wherever they want me.
And I mean, a lot of people who are probably listening to this want to who are who are interested in doing music as a job. For Is there any advice to people who will want to break into the music industry? How difficult is it?
It's very difficult. It's very competitive. And honestly, Chris, a lot of it is luck. It just sometimes you luck out. I will say that, if you want to succeed in the music industry, you have to be very aggressive. You have to be relentless. You have to be your own champion. You have to be your own support system. We don't live in a world where somebody can just be an artist and perform and write songs, and that's all they have to do. At least not until they reach a certain level. Until they get there, you really have to do everything yourself. So you have to be, your own agent and your own manager. And wherever you can, it's great if you can make an investment in companies that can help you with publicity and promotion, which is what I was able to do, because I had the other job, and that, the other job paid for this album as well. And I don't think there's anything wrong with balancing your life and saying, okay, listen, I'm going to have this job to keep a roof over my head, and I'm going to
Yeah.
keep doing my best with music and try to make a go of it. And you just try and until you can just be a musician, you need to try and really just be the best office person that you can, so that you don't get fired and you can afford to finance your music. And then hopefully one day you're so busy with the music that you don't have time to work in an office anymore. And the great thing about the UK is that you're not depending on your job to have your medical benefits like we do in the US. That's a big kind of sticking point for a lot of musicians when they think about you saying, okay, well, now I'm making enough money that I probably don't need a day job anymore. Then you have to say, well, where can I get some medical insurance? Where can I get that? So you have to
Sure.
figure out the most cost effective one.
And I mean, to your followers and people who are listening to the interview right now, do you have social media? So, is there any place that people can follow you on social media?
Yes, I have a page on Facebook. I've got a page on Instagram. I've got my own website. You can go to susanwendelken.com, and that actually will give you all the different links to all the other places. So that's a good one. And then you can also put my name into a platform called Bandcamp, and that's where you can listen to the album and decide if you want to download it. You can listen to every song 10 times for free before you make a commitment.
And my final question for you: you mentioned about your latest release, and you mentioned about how people can get a copy of your song. So, can is there like a physical copy that people can get?
There are physical copies. I'm working on getting them into some platforms. Ideally I'd like to get them up onto Amazon. That's probably the one that would be easiest for people to get it from.
Susan, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for your time.
Chris, thank you so much for taking time to speak to me. I really appreciate it, and I hope I can get to Sheffield someday.
I would love to see you there. Take care.
You too. Bye bye.